Good morning, everyone. In previous session, we discussed about what is generator, why we need to go for generators, and what is custom generator, what is sequence generator, and what is identity generator. So, could you please tell me what is primary key and what is composite primary key? What is primary key in the table and what is composite primary key in the table? What is the difference between primary key and composite primary key? Guys, what is the difference between primary key and composite primary key? Primary key is the combination of two constraints. One is unique and the second one is not null. When we have a primary key, we can use generator to generate the value for primary key column. If you want to use more than one primary key, that is also possible. For that, we are using composite primary key concept. Composite primary key, nothing but a table can have more than one primary key. Okay, fine. So today we are going to understand how to roll back the transactions in the data JPA. Transaction management in data JPA. Transaction management in the data JPA. Transaction represents unit amount of work. So what is the meaning of transaction? Transaction represents unit amount of work. One transaction represents one unit amount of work. A transaction can become successful or transaction can become failure, depends upon the situation, right? So unit amount of work is called as transaction. Unit amount of work is called as transaction. So a transaction state when we perform some operation, that operation requires some transaction, right? Now when we are going for basically databases, transactions we are going to use to perform non-select operation in the database like insert, update or delete, then we need to deal with transactions. When we are dealing with select operations, then transaction is not required. When we are dealing with the select operation, then transaction is not required. Are you guys getting my point? Are you guys getting my point? Unit amount of work is called as transaction. When we are performing non-select operation, we need to deal with transactions. For select operations, transaction is not required. In data JPA, it is taking care of the transactions. So whenever we do a insert operation or when we do a select operation, we are not committing the transaction or we are not rollbacking the transaction. The transaction management is taken care by data JPA. When we execute any non-select operation, that a transaction is getting committed. When we are doing a non-select operation, transaction should be committed to store the data into database permanently. Okay, guys. Now, unit amount of work is called as transaction. When we are performing non-select operation, we need to deal with the transactions. For select operations, transaction is not required. In data JPA, it is taking care of transaction management. In data JPA, it is taking care of transaction management. So we can customize the transaction management according to our requirement. So there will be a scenario, if the operations are successful, then we need to commit the transaction. If the operation is failure, if the operation is successful, then we need to commit the transaction. If the operation is failure, then we need to roll back the transaction. If operation is successful, then we need to commit the transaction. If the operation is failure, then we need to roll back the transaction. How to roll back? When to commit the transaction? If all the operations are successful, if all operations are successful, then we should commit the transaction. Then we should commit the transaction. If any operation is failed, if any operation is failed in the transaction, if any operation is failed in the transaction, then we need to roll back that transaction. If any operation is failed in the transaction, then we need to roll back the transaction. Now, so we can say, take an example of our bank operations, right? So here you are using one bank account and you want to transfer the amount to your friend account. So this is our source account, our account, and we are sending the money to this destination account. This destination account is our friend account. We want to transfer the money from our account to our friend account. Transfer the money from our account to our friend account. Here, two operations should happen. So this is one unit amount of work. Amount should be deducted from source account. Amount should be deducted. We want to transfer amount from source account to destination account. We want to transfer amount from source account to destination account. We want to transfer amount from source account to destination account. Here, two operations in the transaction. Two operations will happen in transaction. Two operations will happen in the transaction. What are those two operations? First one, the first operation, operation A, deduct amount from source account, credit amount to destination account, credit amount to destination account. So here, if you observe guys, two things are happening. If you observe here, two things are happening. Source account is there, destination account is there. We want to transfer the amount from source account to destination account. Two operations. Deduct the amount from the source account and credit the amount to destination account. Deduct the amount from source account, credit the amount to destination account. If both operations are successful, amount deduction completed from the source account and amount credited to destination account. Amount deducted from the source account and amount added to destination account. If it is done, then we don't have any issue. If it is done, we don't have any issue. For example, first operation is successful, but the second operation is failed. Amount is gone from the source account. Amount is gone from the source account and it is not added to destination account. So this is failure. So this is called unit amount of work. The operations that we are doing, is called as one unit amount of work. We want to transfer the amount from source account to destination account. So here two operations should happen, right? Amount should be deducted from the source account and amount should be added to destination account. If both operations are successful, then we need to commit the transaction. If both operations are successful, we need to commit the transaction. If one operation is failed, then we need to roll back the transaction. That means amount is gone from the source account. If amount is added to the destination account, no problem. For example, first operation is success, second operation is failed. Amount is not added to the destination account. Then we need to roll back the transaction. Roll backing the transaction means sending amount back to the source account. If operation is successful, no problem. If operation is failure, then we need to send money back to destination account. We need to send the money back to destination account. Are you guys clear with my point? Unit amount of work means the work that we are doing inside our method. The work that we are doing inside our method, that is our unit amount of work. So a transaction is nothing but unit amount of work. So whenever we are dealing with the transactions, we need to go for a concept called atomicity. We need to go for a concept called atomicity. So acid principles are there for the transaction management. In the acid principles, atomicity is available. What is the meaning of atomicity principle? Guys, can you tell me what is the meaning of atomicity principle? What is the meaning of atomicity principle? Either all or none. Either all operations should happen or none of the operations should happen. When we are working with the transactions, we need to follow acid properties. Acid properties. A stands for atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability. Right. So we need to follow these acid properties when we are dealing with our application, right? Acid properties in database. Atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability, right? The context of transactions processing, the acronym refers acid. It is a 4 properties: acid properties, atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. Got it. So you need to be very careful when we are working with this transaction. So whatever the operation that we are doing, that we need to consider as one unit amount of work, that is one transaction. One unit amount of work, that is one transaction. Okay, guys, fine. So here, when we are dealing with these transactions, first thing is atomicity. Atomicity. That means whatever the work that you are doing as a single unit, either 2 queries you are executing, 3 queries you are executing, 4 queries you are executing, all should be successful or none of the queries should be successful. That is the meaning of atomicity. So let us see the atomicity in acid properties. The term atomicity defines that the data remains atomic. It means if any operation is performed on the data, either it should be performed or executed completely or should not be executed at all. Either all operations should be successful or none of the operations should be successful. That is the meaning of atomicity. Now, entire transaction takes place at once. It does not happen at all. That is the meaning of atomicity. Either all should be successful or none should be successful. Now, if you take this example, whenever we are transferring a amount from one account to another account, before debit successfully, credit successfully. I think this image is, yeah. Before $30, debit $10, available $20. That means we are deducting $10 from the first account. Before it is $100, credited $10, available $110, credited successfully. Complete execution, atomicity execution successful. So atomicity execution successful, nothing but what? All operations are success. So 2 operations. One is deducting the money from the first account, and the second one is adding the money to the second account. Either all operations should be successful or none of the operations should be successful. So that is what, whenever we are transferring the money, if amount is deducted from your account, that money should be added to other account when you transfer. Then only the transaction is successful. If the transaction is successful, then we need to commit that. Suppose first query executed successfully, money gone from your account. money gone from your account, but money is not added to your friend account. Money is not added to your friend account. That means here we need to roll back the transaction. Money is gone from my account, it is not added to my friend account, then we need to bring that money back. Then we need to bring that money back. Are you guys getting my point? We need to bring that money back. Okay, so in order to bring that money back, we are going to roll back the transaction. So let me show you one example how the transaction commit will happen and how the transaction rollbacks will happen. I'm going to take two tables, guys, to insert the data, and I'm going to demonstrate on this transaction commit functionality and the transaction rollback functionality. So the very first thing is, let me change to MySQL database. I'm using MySQL database, MySQL connector. Remove this Oracle, add the MySQL, and the data source properties also. I'm going to add MySQL properties here. Yes, good. MySQL properties I'm adding. Next, if you see here, I'm taking entities, two entities I'm taking. One is employee table and another one is employee address table. So we are filling up the employee form where we are storing employee data into one table, address data into another table. Clear? So this is employee table, which is having employee ID, employee name, and employee salary. So this is entity mapping. Do I need to explain anything about this entity mapping, guys? Do I need to explain anything about this entity mapping? We have done several examples with that. It is an employee class. It is represented as an entity and it is mapped to a database table. Table name is equal to emp underscore table employee, right? ID primary key, and column we are using constructor. We are using zero param constructor, parameterized constructor. Constructors are used to initialize the variables. Next we have address class. Address class is also mapped to one table, employee address table, address ID, state, city, country. So this is also one entity. This is also one entity class. Got my point? Good. Next, for two entities, I have two repositories. Address repository is available and employee repository is available. So is there any confusion in the entity classes and repository interfaces? Address is one entity and address repository is available. Employee is one entity and for that we have employee repository. Now here I have a service class which is used to insert the data. I have a service class which is used to insert the data. Now I'm taking here a service class. In the service class, I'm injecting both repositories. Employee repository is injected and address repository is also injected. Employee service available, employee repository and address repository injected. I'm using through constructor. So this dependency injection I'm performing through constructor injection. Got it? Next one. Here I am writing one method. I'm writing one method called save data. I'm creating the object for employee. I'm inserting the employee record. I'm creating the object for address and I'm inserting address record also. Let me take employee ID as a 201 and address ID as a 501. These are two records insertion. From the UI, we need to assume that employee data is coming and address data is coming. Employee data I am inserting into employee table. Address data I'm inserting into address table. Address table will contain the employee also because this address belongs to which employee. This address belongs to which employee. So for that we are going to insert the employee ID also into address table. This is the method. If I execute this method, then let's observe what is going to happen. What is going to happen? Let's update this Maven project, refresh, right click, Maven, update project, update project. All right. Now let me go to this properties file. I will give this DDL auto option as a create so that a table should be recreated. If it is available, it will drop the table and it is going to create the table. Guys, nothing. I am just inserting two records into two different tables. Let's go to our database, use our database. So remove all these queries, use this. Okay. What are the tables we are mapping? Address is emp address table. This is one table, and the employee is emp table. Yeah. Select a star from emp table, then select a star from employee address table. Okay, execute this. So do we have these tables in the database currently? We don't have these tables in the database. Employee table is not available. Address table is not available. Employee table is not available. Address table is not available. Now, in the UI, we are going to have a screen like this, which is used to insert this data. We are going to have a screen like this. Employee name, whatever the data is available for employee name and employee salary. Employee name, employee salary, and state, city, country. State, city, and country. Like this one form is available. Like this one form is available. I want to store this data. One form is available. I want to store this data. Got it. I want to store this data into the database table. Okay. Instead of storing this data into single table, I want to store this data into multiple tables. Employee name and salary, state, city, and country. So this is my UI. Here I am having save button. Here I am having save button. Right. So what we are going to do is these three fields we are going to store into one table. These three fields we are going to store into one table. These three fields we are going to store into another table. So this data will be stored to employee table, and this data will be stored to address table. Employee table and address table. Okay. I want to store like this. These fields will be stored into employee table. These fields will be stored to address table. Are you guys clear with my point? Let's understand this screen, guys. Guys, understood? Now, so in order to store the data into two tables, I've taken two entity classes. So one is address, another one is employee. Get. Now I have taken one service class, which is used to insert the data. Let's go to our start class. Let's go to our start class and let's execute this program. Run as boot application. Run as boot application. Now see, two queries got executed. Insert the record into employee table. Insert the record into address table. Go to these tables. Select a star from employee table. One record is inserted for employee table. And select a star from address table. Another record is inserted into address table. Employee table and address table. Employee record inserted into employee table and address record is inserted into address table. Are you guys clear with my point now? So here two operations are successful. Here two operations are successful. So I'm trying to insert the record into two tables. So from the screen, I'm getting the data. I want to do the normalization. I don't want to insert the data into one table. I want to insert the data into multiple tables. Employee data I want to insert into employee table. Address data I want to insert into address table. Employee table and address table. Got my point, guys? Okay. So here, if two operations are executed successfully, then no problem. The transaction is committed. That's the reason the data is inserted into the tables successfully. The data is inserted to the two tables successfully. But for example, if there is a problem like this, I'm doing some exception manually. Integer I is equal to 10 by 0. Integer I is equal to 10 by 0. So what is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of this? Integer I is equal to 10 by 0. After this query is executing, some exception is occurring. Then see what is the behavior. Then see what is the behavior. Run as boot application. After inserting the employee data, exception is occurring. Then see what will happen to address data. Exception occurred. Now go to employee table. In employee table, record is inserted. In employee table, insert record is inserted. In address table, record is not inserted. So this is a successful transaction or it is a failure transaction now. I want to insert the screen data to the database table. I have one screen only. I have one screen only. So here employee name, employee salary available, state, city, country available. So here I'm getting two informations from the UI. Employee data I am getting and address data also I'm getting. Employee data I want to store into employee table. Address data I want to store into address table. So if I insert the record into employee table, then definitely address data also should be inserted. So here two queries I am executing. Employee data inserting into employee table. This is my first query. And inserting the record into address table. This is my second query. So this is unit amount of work. These two queries execution will be comes under one transaction. These two queries execution will come under one transaction. If first query is executed, then definitely second query also should execute. That is called atomicity. If first query is executed, second query also should execute successfully. If a second query is failed to execute, then first query also should not execute. That is called atomicity. Are you guys able to understand what is the meaning of atomicity now? Are you guys able to understand What is the meaning of atomicity now? In one transaction, all queries should be successful or none of the queries should be successful. In this scenario, what happened? The record is inserted to employee table. After that, we got some exception. That's why it is not inserting the record into address table. So atomicity is happening here. Atomicity is not happening here. When I go for save data method, atomicity happening or atomicity not happening? Guys, tell me, atomicity is happening or atomicity is not happening? Atomicity is happening or atomicity is not happening? Atomicity happening here or atomicity not happening here? I want your response. Atomicity not happening. Atomicity not happening. Okay, guys. Right. Not happening. First, this query is executing. This data stored permanently in the database. After that, we got some exception. That's why this data is not saving. If address data is not stored into the database, I don't want to store the employee data also, because I want to consider this method as a unit amount of work. If this query executed, then this query also should execute. If this query is not executed, then this query also should not execute. Okay, so that is what we need to do as a transaction rollback. Now, so how to do this transaction rollback? Here, there is an annotation called @transactional. There is an annotation called @transactional that I'm going to specify. @transactional rollback for anything exception dot class. I'm going to specify rollback for exception dot class. So whenever exception occurred in this method, then do the rollback. What is the meaning of that? No transaction should be committed. Here one query is executing, here one query is executing. If there is an exception, then roll back these transactions. So don't execute them. Let's see. If the query is executing properly for first table, then query should execute for second. If second one is not executed due to some exception in the method, first query also should not insert the data. First query also should not insert the data. Got it? Let's run this application. Run as boot app. Run as boot app. Now it failed. Go to the database, check the employee table, record not inserted. Check the employee table, record not inserted. Check the address table, record is not inserted. So now, are we able to do the rollbacks properly? If first query is if second query is failed, first query also not inserting the data. That means if money is not added to your destination account, money should not go from the source account also. If money is deducted from here, money should be added here. If money not added here, money should not go from here. Successful means both should be success. Failure means both should be failed. So that is called atomicity. So here we are using transactions. So transactions are required for non-select operations. For select operations, transaction is not required. Retrieval operations. If you are retrieving the data, for that, we don't need the transaction. When we are performing non-select operations means insert, update, delete. These are called as non-select operations. So for retrieval, select operation, we don't need the transaction. So whenever we are inserting a record to the table, when we are updating the record to the table, when we are deleting the record from the table, then we need the transaction. So if you are just selecting the data from the table, then transaction is not required. Okay. So currently when we are working with the data JPA, we are not committing the transaction. Whenever we execute save method, transaction is getting committed. That's why the record is stored into the database properly. So whenever we do the whenever we do this operation, whenever we call the save method, the record is getting inserted to the database table directly. We are not committing any transaction. Transaction will be taken care by data JPA. Are you guys clear with my point? Are you guys clear with my point? Good. Fine. How I am doing the transaction? Transaction rollback I am doing by using rollback for. So this is the scenario that I'm going to give you. Example. Entity classes and repositories you can create. Example for rollback. Example for rollback. Entities, you can take two entities to insert the data in one method. In one method, I'm writing the logic to insert the data to the two tables. So in between these insert operations, I'm keeping one exception. Manually, I'm throwing the exception. If this exception occurred, transaction should be rolled back. Transaction commit means storing the data permanently. Transaction rollback means bringing the table state to back, bringing the table to previous state. Commit means storing data in database permanently. Storing data in database permanently. Rollback means bringing database to previous state. Before our logic execution, how the data is available in the database, we need to bring the table to the previous state by using rollback. So when we are doing non-select operations like insert operation, update operation, or delete operation, transaction commit is required to store the data permanently. To store the data permanently. Rollback means bringing the database to the previous state. Bringing the database to the previous state. Right. So here I have given a scenario. So what is the failure point and how to roll back the transaction? Are you clear with my point? Are you guys clear with my point? Good. Yeah. Next one. So guys, as of now, we are just inserting. As of now, we are just inserting non. We are just inserting non-binary data. I mean to say, we are inserting numeric values. We are inserting numeric values. We are inserting numbers, text data, dates that we are inserting. Okay. Now I want to insert one photo. I want to insert one photo, or I want to insert a resume. So can you guys do a assignment on this requirement? Develop data JPA application to insert image file into database table. Develop data JPA application to insert image file into database table. Now I want to take one user table. So user underscore ID, it is a integer type. User underscore name, this is varchar type. User email, varchar type. And I want to take user photo. It is a blob type. Blob nothing but binary large object. So if you want to store any binary data in the tables, then we will go for blob, binary large object. As of now, we have taken just numbers. We have just taken numbers. Now I want to take the binary data also. This is going to be my primary key, and I want to mention it as auto increment. So this is my table name, user table, user table. Develop data JPA application to insert image file into database table. User ID, user name, user email, user photograph. ID is a integer, that is a primary key. So I want to generate that value by using auto increment. Username is a varchar, directly data I want to store for that. User email is also a varchar, direct data I want to store. User photo is a blob object because I want to store one image file. I want to store one image file. Got it. Now let us see how to develop one application which will store binary data into database table. Spring Starter project, data JPA blob application. Blob stands for binary object, binary large object. Next, we are going for MySQL driver data JPA Lombok. Next, finish. Right. This should be 21st application. Yeah. Data source properties I'm taking from here. I want to communicate with the MySQL database. Good. Let us create one entity class with a name called user. User in.ashokit.entity. In.ashokit.entity. Click on finish. I'm taking some variables. Private integer user ID. Private string username. Private string user email. Private byte array of image. User image. So to represent the user image, I'm taking byte array, binary data I want to represent for that. So let's use @entity annotation. Let's use @entity annotation in order to represent this class as a entity class. @entity. Then let's go for @table. So I'm going to specify table name as user details table or user table. I'm simply specifying user table. Now @ID primary key value, @generated value with a strategy as identity. MySQL database, so I'm going for identity generator. For Oracle database, you can use sequence generator. Good. Next, go with username. So I'm going with a column. Here also we can map this table variable with a particular column in the database. @column name is equal to user underscore ID. User underscore ID. Here column name is equal to user underscore name. User underscore name. Here user underscore email. Here user underscore image. Column I'm taking as a image. All right. So this is my entity. So what is the difference that we have observed from previous entity class to this entity class? So in the previous entity, we have not taken any column like a byte array. We have stored just numbers and we just stored dates and names. But today I want to store one image also. So for that I'm taking byte array as user image, private byte array as a user image. So this is a large object. I want to store one image in the blob format. When we want to deal with this kind of scenarios, we are going to specify one annotation called lob annotation. Lob annotation represents it is a large object. Large object. For numerics data or for varchar data, we don't need to specify. But when we are working with binary data, when we are working with large objects, then you need to specify @lob. @lob represents large object. This user image I'm going to store into database table. This user image I'm going to store into database table. Are you able to follow this? Are you able to follow this? Good. Now let us create one repository for this. Let us create one repository for this. And we need to use @data for setters and getters. @data. Then create one interface as user repo inside the repository package. Right? Extends from either CRUD repository or JPA repository. Anything is fine. User is our binding class. Data type is a integer. That's it. Let's go to our start class, or if you want I can create one service class and I can call from the service class. I will call from the start class. Layered architecture. Okay, right click new, right click new class. I'm going to take this as a service. So user service, basically in the real time in the service layer only we are going to call repository layer methods. I'm making this as @service. I'm making this as @service. Inside this, I want to inject my repository, private user repository, that is user repo. So @auto void, @auto void. Okay, guys, good. Let's write one method, public void save user. Public void save user. I want to save the user data into database table. Let's create the object for our entity. User is equal to new user. It is my entity class. Do I need to set the data for ID? Do I need to set the data for ID? It is not required because already generator concept is available for this. Already generator concept is available for this. So user dot set user name I am setting something like Raju, and user dot set user email I'm setting Raju @gmail.com. Guys, are you able to understand this? I'm writing one method called save user method. I'm setting a user object. I'm setting user name. I'm setting user email. Okay. So here I want to insert this record. Currently, I'm not setting the image. Currently, I'm not setting the image. So without setting the image, if I insert, let us see what will happen. So I have created one entity class. I have created one entity class and I have created one repository and I have created one service. I represented this also as a Spring Bean. Inside the service, I injected my repository and I'm setting the data to entity. I'm calling save of user. The record is getting inserted into the table. The record is getting inserted into the table. Okay, good, 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 fine, right. Let's go to the start class. Let's get this context object. Let's call our service bean context dot get bean of user service dot class. Context dot get bean of user service dot class. Now I am going to call user service dot save user. I'm just calling that method. I'm just calling that method. User service dot save user. In the save user, I'm setting the data for name and email ID. ID will be generated through generator. ID will be generated through generator. For image, I'm not setting any data currently. I will set it. Let's go to our start class and let's run this. Run as boot application. Run as boot application. Yes, inserted. Name, image, email ID. It tried to insert the record with the user table. Let's go to this table. Select a star from user table. Run this query. Guys, can you see? User ID 1 generated. Email ID we are setting. Name also we are setting. What about image? Is image inserted? Guys, is image inserted or image not inserted? Image inserted or image not inserted? Come on, guys. Image inserted or image not inserted? Not inserted because we did not set the value for the image. That's why image value is a null. Now, how can I insert the image? How can I insert the image? Any idea? Anybody having any idea? How can I insert the image? Any idea? How can I insert the image? Right? I need to first of all take one image path. Let me take one image in my system somewhere. Course images. Okay. Let's take a Docker image. Yes. So Docker image is available. I want to insert this Docker image. So let me take the path of this image. Let me take, or else let me copy this image. Let me make it simple path. Okay. So I am copying this image here. What happened? Course images. Where is that? Yeah. Copy Docker image. Yes. Yeah, I kept it. So this is the location docker.jpg available. Let's go to this service. String image path is equal to this one. In this also, it is having as docker.jpg. So this is my image path. This is my image path. See users, Ashok, OneDrive, documents, certificates, docker.image, something like this. Now, I want to set this image to user entity object user image. What is the data type of the user image? What is the data type of the user image, guys? Byte array. Now image is available inside a file. Now I need to convert this file data to byte array. Can anyone think of it and tell me how to convert this file to byte array? How to convert this file to byte array? Guys, come on. Can you think and tell me how to set this data? I have the file path I have. I want to set this as a byte array. See here, file input stream, FIS is equal to using new file input stream, new file of image path. Are you clear? Are you clear with this? It is giving some exception, file not found exception, so throws that. File input stream FIS is equal to new file input stream. So I'm trying to read the file data. I'm trying to read the file data by using input stream object. Got it? I'm trying to read the file data by using input stream object. Now FIS dot read byte array. In order to read the data, it is asking me one byte array, right? I need to give the byte array so that it can read the data and it can store in the byte array. Byte array object I'm creating. Byte array is equal to new byte array. You can give some space, how much space you want. 1024 I'm giving for the byte array. I'm giving FIS dot read of byte array. So what is this is going to do? Here I am creating one byte array which is used to store the image data. I'm giving some size for this array and I'm reading this file data by using input stream. I'm connecting the file to input stream by using file input stream. Then FIS dot read of this array. That means using this file input stream, I'm reading this file data and I'm storing into this array. I'm storing into this array. Now I have byte array. Once I have this byte array, then I can set user dot set image as a byte array. I can set that array. I can set that array. That's it. Are you clear with my point? Are you clear with my point? How I am reading the file data to the byte array and how I am setting the byte array to my entity. Here we are having some exception. Just throws exception. Right? If size is not sufficient for you, then you can go with this 2048. Clear, guys? Once your operation is completed, then you just close your file input stream. FIS dot close. File input stream object I am opening and I am closing that. Let me change the data. Let me change the data. Some Suresh. Suresh@gmail.com. Right? Next. Run as Java application. Go to start class. So run as boot application. Inserted into the table. Go to this table. Now can you see for Suresh blob is inserted? Can we see that blob is inserted? Come on, guys. Can we see that blob is inserted? Yes, blob is inserted. Yeah, look at this code, how we are inserting a image to the table. Here we have hard coded the file size. Is it recommended to hard code the file size? Is it recommended to hard code the file size? No, some files will have more space, more size. This size is not sufficient. Then how to get the file size dynamically? There is a concept called files.size. Files.size method is available. It is going to give you the size. Give the image path. If you give the image path, it is going to give you image path. We need to give path dot get of that file name that we are going to specify. Image path that we are going to specify. Path dot paths dot get of that URI, that image path we can specify. Okay, files dot size, it will give you the size. That size you can supply. That size you can supply. Long size it is giving. Cannot convert from long to int. Then do the typecast like this. Okay, so instead of hard coding the file size, we are instead of hard coding the file size, we are getting it by using files concept. We are getting by using files concept. Clear? Are you able to understand this? Are you guys able to understand this? Good. How to retrieve the image from the database? Can you tell me how to retrieve the image? How to retrieve the image from the database? How to retrieve this record? How to retrieve a record from the database table, guys? How to retrieve a record from the database table? By using find by ID. Okay, so can you guys try retrieving the record from the table? I'm giving this entity. The only difference is byte array I have taken, lob annotation I have taken. Byte array is used to represent that binary data we are using, right? Repository interface is available for this. And I have given a service class. In this service class, we are writing the logic to insert the record into table by reading it from a file. You can give file path, give a file path, give file path. You give your file path here and it is going to insert the record into the database table. Right. Can you try retrieving the record from the table by using find by ID? And can we write the file to another file? We are going to get the byte array. We can't print the byte array on the console, so we need to display the image. We need to write the data to another image. Whenever you retrieve the record, you are going to get the byte array. That byte array you need to write it to another image. Is it clear, guys? So can you practice that, storing the image and retrieving the image from the table? Yeah, so please do that. And so tomorrow is going to be our doubts discussion session on the data JPA. So I have completed the content for the data JPA. Tomorrow we are going to discuss about the problems that you guys are facing, any doubts that you are having, that we can discuss in the tomorrow session. And from Friday, we are going to start with the Spring Web MVC. So tomorrow is going to be our doubts clarification session. Okay, mappings I'm going to conduct as a workshop. How to do the relationships for Java project batch people also, I have to explain the mappings. I will conduct one weekend workshop. Sunday I will conduct a workshop for how to do mappings by using data JPA. So the remaining stuff is completed for data JPA. So you people need to practice this transaction rollback and how to store the image and how to retrieve the image from the database. And tomorrow it is going to be completely doubt session. If anybody having any questions related to this JPA, if you are facing any exceptions while developing this application, any other doubts, technical doubts, that we are going to discuss in the tomorrow session. From Friday, our Spring Web MVC concept is going to start. Okay, guys, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye bye.